Tulsi Gabbard is not feeling Kamala Harris. Now, she's made her opinion of Kamala Harris known during the Joe Biden kerfuffle, where Joe Biden essentially raised the hand of racists in order to show how awesome civility is. She kind of made that point known then, when she kind of made this thing of, look, Kamala Harris is using this for political gamesmanship. Now, I disagreed with her using it for that, but nevertheless, she did that. Her politics is supposed to be non-political, in which case she's, trying to get that across. However, she goes further with this. Now, Kamala Harris hits one Joe Biden, and in hitting one Joe Biden, regardless of what Tulsi Gabbard thinks, that hit was effective, and that hit pulls her up to third place within the polling. Now, she's fallen back down to fourth, but only like 1 point. She is essentially floating in third place with Elizabeth Warren. It worked. Her political strategy of tagging Joe Biden worked. Tulsi Gabbard has gone further in her criticism of Kamala Harris, saying that she is unqualified to be commander-in-chief. It gets worse, by the way. That's just the beginning of it. Welcome to the Soapbox. My name is Jamarl Thomas. This is the Progressive Soapbox. Guys, if you enjoy this content and you find yourself coming back to this channel often, please consider supporting this content through PayPal or Patreon. Not to mention liking the video if you like it and sharing the video if you like it. If you don't like it, you can bury it and pretend if it doesn't exist. But if you do, please consider supporting. We like to say even $1 helps, because every video that I did yesterday was demonetized, I think with the exception of one. And I think if you check around with the other channels, that is consistent, especially with independent media. Tulsi Gabbard, let's do the news. So I know the Mueller investigation is going on right now, meaning that show trial that's taking place in Congress. But let's get to heavier and more interesting things. So Tulsi Gabbard goes after Tim Ryan in the debates. And this increases Tulsi Gabbard's profile. Now, a lot of right-wingers like Tulsi Gabbard. And if you look at her politics, you can kind of see why, especially many right-wingers don't necessarily like this foreign intervention thing. And Tulsi Gabbard tends to talk less about identity politics, which is definitely one of the reasons why they like her. But one of the things that raised her profile was her putting a knife in neocon Democrat Tim Ryan.
That's $130 million that we could be spending in places like Youngstown, Ohio, or Flint, Michigan, or rebuilding.
Congresswoman Gabbard, I'm going to give you 30 seconds, actually, to jump off what he said. He described engagement as the problem. Is that what you will tell the parents of those 2 soldiers who were just killed in Afghanistan? Well, we just have to be engaged. As a soldier, I will tell you that answer is unacceptable. We have to bring our troops home from Afghanistan. We are in a place in Afghanistan where we have lost so many lives. We've spent so much money that's coming out of every one of our pockets, money that should be going into communities here at home, meeting the needs of the people here at home. We are no better off in Afghanistan today than we were when this war began. This is why it's so important to have a president and commander-in-chief who knows the cost of war and who's ready to do the job on day one. I am ready to do that job when I walk into the Oval Office. Thank you very much.
Now, Tim Ryan puffs his chest up and tries to go back at her. And she crushes him. She puts him down like a bad mule. Now, this increased her profile. And people like me who look at this and say, yeah, we don't necessarily need to be engaged. By the way, the existence of a thing doesn't necessarily mean that that thing needs to continue its existence. Even though human beings have this kind of weird way of looking at something and saying that thing has existed for X amount of time, it should always exist, and we need to somehow support it in perpetuity. Not so much. Events change. And when events change, the actions of individuals in the process need to be honest and saying, okay, we need to change with those events. We don't need to have these troops in Afghanistan. We do need to bring those troops home out of Afghanistan and Syria. They don't want us in those countries. We have made things worse in those countries. And I love the fact that Tulsi Gabbard makes the point that if that was your kid in that country dying, your answer of, we just need to be engaged, is massively unacceptable. God, she's right. Now, that last zinger, by the way, you need somebody who's ready on day one to go into office. She's extended that beyond Tim Ryan not being acceptable to also one Kamala Harris. Tulsi Gabbard has slammed Kamala Harris as being unqualified for the job. Now, this is astonishing. Now, do you remember when Bernie Sanders said Clinton was unqualified for the job? People flipped out, and Bernie Sanders had to clean it up. Tulsi Gabbard is not bothered by such niceties. She says Kamala Harris is unqualified for the job. And she goes further. Tulsi Gabbard is on Fox News, but it's on the radio, Fox News. Kamala Harris is not qualified to serve as commander-in-chief, and I can say this from a personal perspective as a soldier. She has no background experience in foreign policy, and she lacks the temperament that is necessary for commander-in-chief. I've seen the cost of war firsthand and experience the consequences of what happens when the presidents of both political parties in the White House, who lack experience and lack the foreign policy understanding, who therefore fall under the influence of the foreign policy establishments in the military-industrial complex. This is what's so dangerous and what we've seen over time. The gloves are off. Look, you heard me say months ago that there is no way the Democratic Party is going to be able to keep this thing of let's not hit each other. How can you do that? You need to show a distinction between who you are and who the other person is. And regardless of the rules that you guys agree upon, there is a larger rule that is at work. That larger rule being to win. The job is to win, to get out of the primary. The goal is to win. Regardless of the rules that you put in place, the things that you agree upon, those things matter less than the ultimate task of winning. Meaning that the rules were going to always fall by the wayside when the objective of it was to get into the presidency. And to do so, sometimes you have to put down the other person in order to make yourself look a little bit better. Now, that said, you actually might be right in the put down. So don't misunderstand me. If I make the point and say Elizabeth Warren is going to take money when she gets out of the primary, that's a put down, but that is also true. And that's something that Elizabeth Warren herself has said she was going to do. So don't take my word for it, take hers. I'm making a point that what Tulsi Gabbard is doing here is essentially trying to say that woman is unqualified. My job and the thing that I'm talking about in this campaign is foreign policy. I think that is the most important thing on the planet. And so people who don't measure up in this regard, I'm going to point them out. And I can't do this in this kind of non-aggressive way. I have to get aggressive. I need to get to the third debate. And if I'm going to get to the third debate, I need to start making a little bit of noise, and I need the people to recognize me. Hence this. She's making herself known. And by the way, when she gets on the debate stage, she is going to be on the debate stage with Kamala Harris. And she will get the opportunity, if she has the stones, to do what she did to Tim Ryan, to pull a Tim Ryan on Kamala Harris. Will she do it? Does Tulsi Gabbard have the stones to stand there and tell Kamala Harris that she does not have the experience to be commander-in-chief? That is going to be astonishing if that's true. But, by the way, from a politics standpoint, it's only to their betterment. It doesn't hurt Tulsi Gabbard to do that. If Tulsi Gabbard gets up there and don't misunderstand me, I know this is a cynical portrayal of politics, but what do you think politics is? Think about it for the moment. What is Tulsi Gabbard's objective? Tulsi Gabbard's objective is to win, to get her name known, to get to the third debate. As long as you can stay in the debates, you have a chance. She needs to get to the third debate. How do you get to the third debate? You need to get your name known. You need people to notice you. How do you get people to notice you? You cause a fire. You cause a ruckus. How do you cause a ruckus? That woman is unqualified. Is it true? Maybe. Having the stones to say it, however, draws a circle around the fact that you said it. It creates conflict. Think about on YouTube. If you look at a YouTube video and it says this guy punches this guy, that video gets more views as opposed to this guy has an intellectual conversation with so-and-so. The conflict, the car crash, people rubberneck. People like to rubberneck. In Tulsi Gabbard's standpoint, she needs people to notice her because don't nobody know who she is, at least the larger public. You do that by starting a fire. You start a fire with somebody who's at the top echelon in the debate. Here's the catch. If Kamala Harris withstands this, Kamala Harris would be the better for it. If Tulsi Gabbard wins this, then Tulsi Gabbard would be the better for it. It's politics. And debates are spectacles. I mean, it's not entirely this person arguing their idea versus somebody else's idea. There's a spectacle involved in a visual debate. It's a medium. It's audio-visual. I'll give you an example. When John F. Kennedy was debating Richard Nixon, if you were in there watching it, you say John F. Kennedy won. If you were listening to it on the radio, you say Richard Nixon won. Why? Because people could see Richard Nixon sweating, and it made him look like he was somewhat shisty. However, if you just listened to it, what Nixon's saying came across as being apparently more reasonable. It depends. It's a visual medium that has to be taken into account. And for better or worse, fires draw attention. It's true. It just is what it is. Port Film Co-op. If not Tulsi, vote Trump 2020. Wow, that's aggressive. I am not doing that shit. Look, I voted for Stein because I couldn't bring myself to vote for Clinton. Not to mention, I thought things would get worse with Clinton, if I'm being honest. I thought the system will perpetuate itself, and propping up the system in the way it was not something I was going to co-sign. By the same token, my logic follows for Trump also. If this system falls, and if people elect Trump, fair enough, but they're not going to do it with my damn vote. He's fucking horrific.